Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Well, great to be with you on the show today. All he wants to talk about is soccer.
No, I don't.
There's anybody in the face of the earth knows what's going on with it. So,
jeez. Well,
welcome to America.
I know. Hey, in America, we've got a brand new coach. England's got a new coach as well now. It's been a couple days of interestingness, but what matters to me most right now is the Yankees are up 2-0 against the Guardians, even though they can't run bases to save their life. And as John Sterling said,
but they've never been a good base running team.
I know. But the fact that they are as bad as they have been, boggles my mind a little bit. And John Sterling said it yesterday best on the call, where he said, and I quote, "They look like a bunch of drunks," and they do. And as someone who prided themselves on running bases in high school, it's one of the first things you kind of learn. And you play enough baseball, you have to have a feel for it.
Right.
So it's not like it's rocket science.
Right.
That's one of the easy parts, where it's just understanding what's going on around you. And you play the game, you have to understand it automatically to be in the majors.
Right.
So how can you be that bad? It baffles me, Steve.
They've never been good at it because they don't have good baseball instincts. You have to have good baseball instincts to play. You have to have good instincts to play any sport at the highest level. Well, they don't. Okay? It's as simple as that. And that's the way it is. You either care about it and try to get better at it, or you don't. They don't care about it.
Nope.
Right? They want to hit home runs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, it's easy to run the bases in a trot. It was great to see Aaron Judge hit a home run.
Mm-hmm.
He's the greatest player of all time. Just ask the Yankee fans. Hank Aaron had 6 home runs, 17 RBIs in 17 playoff games, hit .362. Might not be as, he's not quite Aaron Judge.
I'm so excited for my vacation.
I'm just telling you.
I know.
I'm a big, in all seriousness, I'm a big believer that when the money's on the table, who's best? He's not. Okay? You can hit a whole bunch of home runs against the White Sox. That's great. Right? And he had a great regular season. He did. He had a great regular season. But in this spot for years, not just now, years, since 2020, he's hitting 144.
I know.
And they're not pitching around him.
They pitched at him yesterday.
Kyle, they pitch at him every game.
I know.
That's why he has a 35% strikeout rate. They're pitching at him.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Ohtani hasn't been good in this spot either to this point. He is not. Right? Ask yourself, you look at the great playoff performers over the years, spotlight's the brightest, the pitching the toughest, the pressure the greatest. That's why you admire when you sit there and see an Albert Pujols and see what he was able to hit 3 World Series home runs in a game. And that's not the only game he had.
Yeah.
He had great performances all the time during the course of his career, right? Even a game I went to the game 2 of the 2004 World Series, right? Well, in that game, right, Schilling pitched great. The Red Sox pitchers gave up 4 hits in the game. Pujols had 3 of them. Okay?
Yeah.
Right? There's just certain people when the lights are the brightest.
They perform.
Okay?
They show up.
I feel like even though he doesn't have the best average, Harper plays great. Schwarber doesn't have the best average, but Schwarber plays great. Big moments. And, of course, we've gone through the David Ortiz thing forever. Okay? But, that's because the pressure's the greatest. The pitching is the steadiest. The team that got there that you're facing had to have good pitching to get there. And, let's give some credit where credit is due to a guy that has been lousy the last couple of regular seasons. Giancarlo Stanton has had a great playoff to this point.
He has showed up.
Giancarlo Stanton has had a great playoff to this point. Gleyber Torres has played well to this point.
Yeah.
Juan Soto's played well. He hasn't. And he's got protection all around him. Right? Yeah, he hit one last night. Is there a parade?
Yeah. But the thing was last night, and it was talked about, and I think this has been something so many Yankee fans have not discussed. Like, we've discussed it enough, and I know it. I know he's not been good in the playoffs, and he's great in the regular season, but as you brought up, like, doesn't matter. You got to show up in the playoffs. Juan Soto has already. He won a World Series. He's showed up, and he always has. And last night, there was 2 runners on. Juan Soto's up. Aaron Judge is on deck. What do the Guardians do? They intentionally walk Soto to get to Judge.
Right.
In the regular season, no team is doing that. Right. They are running scared from both of them. In fact, they'd probably rather walk both of them and deal with anyone else. But they intentionally walked Soto to get to Judge. He hit a sac fly. It worked. Wasn't great. You'd rather him hit a really hard ball, hit a single, hit a double, something. Right. Instead, he hits a sac fly to shallow left center field, which wasn't great to see. And then he did hit the one deep over right center.
And that ball carried.
Which carried,
That ball carried. There's no question. I thought the ball was going to be caught.
Yeah. And it wasn't one of the short porches. It was deep right center. It was a real home run.
It was belted.
So he got a hold of it. But yeah, Stan showed up best so far. He has been playing lights out.
Stan has been outstanding to this point. And again, because I've been critical of Stan before. But again, one of the points I've tried to make in doing this show for decades is that I will praise people, and which also opens the door. And if I'm critical of somebody and they do something right, I praise them right away. I don't stay on the same track all the time. All right, you go with what is right in the moment. And I've been critical of Stan in the past, but I got to praise him today because he's doing everything you could ask a guy to do in the playoffs.
He's showing up, and as things stand, there is a chance that New York will be the home of baseball at the end of October. There is a chance that it is a Subway Series matchup.
We'll see. I mean, I'll see that's the better series. Cleveland doesn't have enough to beat the Yankees.
No.
There was nobody that they had except for Baltimore. Baltimore was the only team that I felt could match up with the Yankees. And they've been hurt. So the Yankees, I felt, really had a clear path in. Kansas City was not going to give them enough.
No.
Cleveland's not going to give them enough. Conversely, on the other side, the Mets can give the Dodgers enough.
And, I mean, it's 1-1 right now. They are at Citi Field tonight for game number 3. That game is going to be at 8 o'clock on FS1. Mets-Dodgers, Walker Buehler versus Luis Severino is going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah. Buehler still throws hard. Okay?
Yeah.
But Buehler has control problems since the surgery.
Yeah.
And that's been the issue for him. Velocity is not the issue for Buehler. Severino has never really been great in this spot. Playing at home will help the Mets a little bit. Plus, it's not exactly going to be America's warmest night.
No, it is not. It's going to be chilly.
Right. And so we'll see how. I mean, it's not going to bother a guy like Mookie Betts. He played in Boston all those years. Ohtani, I mean, they may have. I mean, the Dodgers may have an ash can in the in the dugout. It's 44.
Yeah,
like everybody warm up.
It has already been announced.
It was beautiful, by the way. Because I was out there for Game 5. I did not go to Game 5. We went to dinner and said we decided to have a good time.
Smart. And by the way, the Game 4 pitchers for that series is going to be Yamamoto against Jose Quintana. That's going to be on Thursday.
Quintana's been good. Yamamoto, I don't know. I've watched him.
No, I know. Yeah,
I just I don't know.
Everyone's unsure.
He's under the category to me of I don't get it. Right? You gave him all this money. I don't get it.
What I will say is I want to give him time, and I think the problem is people, because of the amount of money they gave him, are now putting him against Ohtani, and they're like, well, how is he compared to Ohtani? And that's unfair because Ohtani is a unicorn in every aspect, where the dude came in, took him a couple years, and all of a sudden he's a top 10 pitcher, top 10 hitter in baseball. And that is otherworldly. So give Yamamoto some time. Let's not judge
him.
I know. And he's got a few
He's drawing
years.
checks.
And he's got a few years on his contract.
He's drawing checks.
Well, all of his money's deferred, Steve, so it's okay. And then it's him, Quintana, and then Thursday's game for the Yankees, it's Clark Schmidt on the mound against to be determined for
Schmidt
Cleveland.
has been good. I mean,
he's been really good.
I mean, he's been very, very good for them.
And then Yankees game number 4 on Friday is going to be Luis Heel on the mound against, again, to be determined in Cleveland at Progressive Field. So we'll see what the next few days.
They need to get Jose Ramirez going.
They do. But we'll see what the next few days hold. But there is a chance that it's going to be a Subway Series, which I think would officially signify that New York sports is going to have itself a fun couple weeks, and it's going to be what New York has missed.
But if the Dodgers win, it's bi-coastal and it gets the entire country included.
Baseball wins if it's Yankees-Dodgers.
Okay, it's the sport wins if it's Yankees-Dodgers. New York wins if it's Mets and the Yankees.
Yeah.
And I think that you'll find that it is not as intriguing nationally as people would think it is. It's not the 1940s and 50s any longer.
And Steve, did you know there has never been one day where every single New York sports team has won a game? Did you know that? All four major sport teams.
You're talking about a city that has the Jets and the Giants, right?
Including Jets and Giants, yes. I know. Okay. So including the Jets and the Giants,
and the Knicks.
Yankees, Mets, Knicks, Nets, and then Rangers, Islanders. They had
that's a lot of teams that have to
win. There had never been a day where all 8 teams had won together. Sunday night, 7 of the teams had won.
Right.
Technically, there's 9 teams in New York, or technically 10 teams. You include the Buffalo Sabres as well. 7 of the 8 New York City teams, quote unquote, because the Meadowlands is close enough that they count it, even though they're in New Jersey. And Long Island, they're close enough. Never been a day where they'd all won. Guess who blew it? The Jets. The last game, they blew it. It could have been, but then Aaron Rodgers decided, you know what? Let's have a mistake. And then the Jets go out and trade.
Cruel.
You know what? No. The Jets deserve for someone to be cruel to them, okay? They're the Jets. And they trade for Davante Adams. They're acting like everything's sunshine and rainbows right now. It's almost like they're not a good football team, Steve. They're just not good.
That's because they are not a good football team.
They're not a good football team. They're not good.
I tried to point that out to you.
And I know. I never said they were going to be a good team this year. I said it was going to come down to the Texans, the Chiefs, and insert AFC North team here in the Buffalo Bills. And look who's right so far. Me.
Well, the Bills ended up getting Amari Cooper.
They got Amari Cooper.
He should fit well with what they do.
Yeah, they took him out of Cleveland, I think, pretty happily. As apparently so far through this season, per all metrics, he has been the worst receiver in football in terms of players who have been targeted like a certain number of times. He had been the worst receiver in football, which is just...
Jason Lord stopped going to Taco Bell because of it.
Oh, God. But yesterday...
Oh, come on.
I know.
Line.
Bills traded for Amari Cooper.
It's a good line.
I know. It was good. That was well done. The Bills traded for Amari Cooper, and the Jets traded for Davante Adams. The Bills, I think, getting Amari Cooper is going to help them because he can be a strong receiver for them. He helps out the receiving core a little bit, gives them more depth, gives them a better player overall. So I think Josh Allen will enjoy having Amari Cooper. And then the Jets, Davante Adams. Spoiler, they traded for him. Everyone who thought he wasn't going to go to the Jets was wrong. I was a Saints fan. We were rumored. I was like, there's no way.
Well, they gave up a 3rd-round pick. Normally, no offense, well, it's Davante Adams. The NFL doesn't work the way fans think it works.
No.
Okay? They think that a guy gets traded because he's a name and he's a 1st or 2nd-round pick in return.
Yeah.
It's not how the NFL works. That's why when the Chase Claypool trade went down with the Bears, a 2nd-round pick, that should have been a 6th or a 7th. A guy like Adams, probably most teams were offering a 4 and a 5. Like most teams are offering 3rd-day picks, even for a name. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, a 3rd round, they probably got him instead of New Orleans or somebody else because they're the ones that gave up the 3rd-round draft capital to do it. Probably nobody else offered the 3rd round.
No.
Because that's not, for whatever reason, and I completely understand why a fan would understand, like, it's Davante, second round pick. Right? You got to give him a second round pick for a guy like that. Not a first round, but a second round pick. No, most teams are probably offering 5, 6, and 7 round.
Yeah.
And it turns out the Jets offered 3, and that's probably why the reason they got it.
Yeah. And like for those wondering at their trade wise, none of these big trades for like first rounders, they don't happen a lot, Steve. Like they just don't. The big one that everyone's now discussed, which might go down as one of the single worst trades to ever happen, is Deshaun Watson, where, of course, there was a lot of other things going on there, but he was traded for a 2024 sixth, and he was a Texans 2024
and
sixth
Bryce Young's
with
the other
him.
one. But Bryce Young is a kid.
Yes, but Deshaun Watson.
Right, but Watson came with him as an adult with incredible baggage. And as I pointed out many times, it's difficult to sit there in a locker room with husbands and fathers, okay?
Yeah.
With somebody accused of everything that he's accused of doing.
Yeah.
What kind of respect are you going to have? You respect his talent.
And he has been
and his talent hasn't
bad.
gone through.
He was traded for a first and a fourth in 22, a first and a third in 23, and a first and a fourth in 24.
Yeah.
And so far, the Texans have used the picks to draft, I don't know, Will Anderson so far was the first player they grabbed, I believe.
That's enough.
That's enough, yeah. The players they've drafted so far, here we go. They traded their 2022 first-round pick to the Eagles, they then ended up getting the 15th overall pick for 13. They got Kenyon Green. Yeah. They then used the picks the Eagles gave them to draft some dude named John Mechie, who's been, I think, pretty good.
Yes. Mechie's fine.
And then they drafted their 2022 fourth was Damian Pierce. He's been pretty good. Their first-round pick, then, of course, they traded and swapped to get Will Anderson, pretty good. Their 2023 third, they traded and got Tank Dell.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
And they just keep on grabbing more players. They used one of the other picks, by the way, to then get Stephon Diggs later in the draft. Right. And then they used their fourth round pick in 2024 to get Cade Stover, who's also been pretty darn good for them. So
Stover, I thought, would be good for them.
So
I always liked Stover as a player at Ohio State.
Yeah. But so far, it's been real good. Trades of that caliber don't happen, and you see why.
Well, you're seeing more of these trades. Look, people are getting desperate. When I mean, I'm talking about organizations. And number one, you do want to be a good trade partner, right? Because then they will trade with you later, right? And when you're trading picks, you're a good trade partner because now it's up to you as to who you select. The Watson thing, I don't get it. I know everybody needs a quarterback. Everybody needs one. The league is not exactly populated at this moment with a depth of great quarterbacks. There are two big reasons to me, actually 3 big reasons. 3 big reasons to me why you're seeing the 12-play, 75-yard drive and not as many big plays. 1, people are playing cover 2, and to their credit, they're playing it pretty well. Right? 2, you don't have offensive lines that are good enough to give quarterbacks enough time to maybe pick apart a cover 2. And number 3, you don't have quarterbacks good enough to pick apart a cover 2, whether they have time or not. And that's one of the reasons why the league, there was a game between, it was a wild game. It ended up, it was a...
This past week?
Yeah, it was, I didn't see a lot this past weekend. It was maybe the weekend before. It ended up, 35 to 33, 30. I think it involved Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay was one of the teams.
Oh, I'm guessing was it the Bucks-Falcons game, or was it?
Yeah, it was Bucks-Falcons.
Bucks-Falcons?
Right, which was won in overtime.
The Kirk Cousins 500-yard.
Right, that was a fun game. Okay? The problem is that how many other fun games have been played in the league this year? I mean, the game between the Jets and the Bills the other night was close, but the officials, there were 20 penalties that were accepted.
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't include the ones that weren't accepted. There were 20 penalties that were accepted in that game. It became unwatchable because of how the game was not. Look, to say how it was officiated is not completely fair. Okay, that's not completely fair.
Just I think the number is what it is.
It's a combination of guys committing penalties and everything being called. Right? And they went a little bit like
it strayed too far.
Okay, they strayed too far. There was one that 3 times when replay assist has to like straighten it out. That's not good. Okay, it's good that it happened and it happens fast, but it means you made a mistake on the field as to what you did.
Yeah,
and that game was unwatchable. Cincinnati and Atlanta was fun, exciting, dynamic. I thoroughly enjoyed watching the game, and I didn't care who won.
Yeah.
I didn't care who won. I was like, oh, this is a fun game. But how many other fun games have there been?
Yeah.
I mean, your team's what?
2 and 4. We'll discuss the Saints momentarily.
Oh, yeah, Saints. Okay, the Saints go out the first 2 games and they score a bucket-load of points. They haven't scored much since. Right? And they're not playing well. And when I watch the Saints, they have not been fun to watch.
Oh, we'll discuss them more in a minute.
No, but I'm saying that. But the Giants have not been fun to watch. The Jets have not been fun to watch. There's a long list of teams that have not been fun to watch to this point. Jason loves the 49ers. They haven't been fun to watch.
They've been bad.
The Cowboys have been a terrible.
A dumpster fire.
Now, Baltimore's been fun. Okay? Because Lamar's fun to begin with. Okay? But there are too many, like ever since Tua got hurt, the Dolphins, who were so much fun last year to watch, are just, I mean, look, like, it's not, Mike McDaniel's not doing anything wrong. He just doesn't have the guy to run it.
Yeah. You know who's been fun to watch? The Lions. They've been fun to watch.
The Lions have been fun, but again, we're talking about a handful of teams. You can be a 500 team and be fun to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, you're 500 because, the final score was 30-27. We won. Next week we lost 30-27, but it was fun.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, this Thursday's game is going to be the Broncos and who the heck are they playing?
The Broncos are playing the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans because they're honoring Drew Brees as he gets inducted to the ring of Hall of Fame for the Saints,
which he deserves richly.
By the way, it's Sean Payton's first time back in New Orleans, so this should be really fun.
But again, the Broncos are boring to watch.
Yep.
And the Saints aren't playing well.
Yep.
Right? I mean, it's not. This has been when the most exciting division is the NFC North. All 4 of those teams.
Yeah.
Chicago. Okay, Green Bay, Detroit, Minnesota. Minnesota quietly has gone out, and they're a blast to watch. Darnold's been great for them, but that's been it. There are too many. Carolina is not fun to watch. Jacksonville's dreadful to watch. I mean,
heck, the Titans are just a tough watch. They're bad.
Watch. The Patriots are a tough watch.
Bengals are a tough watch, which is crazy to say out loud.
Even the Bengals are, with a great quarterback in Joe Burrow, and he is a great quarterback. But they're hard to watch, and it's just the league is. Oh, this is the great. No, it's not the greatest ever. It's a lot of like. Okay,
there's some yikes.
The biggest help, the 2 biggest things the NFL is going for right now in viewership, quite simply, are A, fantasy football, and B, gambling.
Yeah.
I mean, really, college football's been far more.
Oh, my God, it's been so much better.
I mean, Oregon, Ohio State, great game. Penn State, USC, great game.
Alabama, Georgia, oh, my God.
Alabama, Georgia, great game. All right, and then you've got games this weekend where Georgia plays Texas in Austin. And Texas is number 1, and say Georgia doesn't win, suddenly Georgia falls into the 2-loss pool, which means they're going to have to be perfect the rest of the way.
Yep.
Tennessee plays Alabama, 3rd Saturday in October. Here we go.
Yeah.
The loser of that game falls into the 2-loss pool and now has to be perfect the rest of the way. But you're getting fun, great games.
Heck, LSU
in college.
Arkansas is going to be more fun than NFL
Right.
games are going to be.
Right. I mean, college football has been exponentially more fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every once in a while you get a Texas-Oklahoma game that was not a good game.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But the other games that were played on Saturday, Oregon and Ohio State was great.
Mm-hmm.
Penn State USC was great. The game I watched late at night on the plane coming back, Kansas State Colorado was a terrific game.
Yeah.
Right? You don't get that in the NFL.
Yeah. Before we get to the NFL thing I want to discuss, there's one big shout out I want to make, which is to two teams in the American Conference, Army and Navy, both currently sitting undefeated.
Yes, both ranked.
And both ranked. Have you heard this brought up before so far this year about how they can both have one loss, but both technically should make the playoff? Have you heard about this or no? So
no, neither one is going to make the playoff.
So as things,
the team that is in the driver's seat to make the playoff, if they keep winning, is Boise State.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, you got to be realistic about these things. I think it is great that they're undefeated. Navy has had the better program in the last 20 years until Jeff Monken came along. Jeff Monken came along and then went to Army. He has made them good, competitive, and you don't want to play them. Right? I mean, and so I think it's great that they've both. It's the first time they've both been ranked since 1945, and it's incredible. Now, could they one of them get through? Only one of them would get through.
Well, have you heard the thought, which is, let's say they both win out. Let's say both Army and Navy win out by something happening, which would, by the way, require Army to beat Notre Dame on the 23rd and require Navy to beat Notre Dame on the 26th of October. So in a couple weeks. Let's say they both beat Notre Dame somehow and they both go undefeated. The American Championship game is going to be that first weekend in December, the 7th.
Right.
One of them will win that game. Let's say Army wins it. The next week, they play each other again because they have their normal matchup as they always do at the end of every season. Right. They could both have a loss. They could both spoil the other team's chances of making any sort of playoff game, which for me is just like the most incredible storyline we have in college football, because that is just that doesn't happen. And that's really fun. That is a fun thing that these two teams could play in the championship game and then have to play each other again the week afterwards to be able to get in. That's really cool. And that's a fun storyline. And I just wanted to bring that up.
No, I think, but it is fun.
Yeah.
Right?
It's fun.
It is fun. And there's only going to be one spot available.
Yeah.
One. And you have others vying for that spot. But the fact they're both undefeated at this point, both coaching staffs have done a great job. Players have done a great job. And it would be fun to see one of them get in, but when you look at Boise State, you look, they play Washington State, they played Oregon. I mean, Boise's played some people. They got to play, still have to play UNLV. So,
and it's not like they're winning by like 2 points. They're putting up points. Ashton Genty, as we discussed yesterday, is running his way into record books really quickly.
Sure, he's been terrific. I'm looking forward to seeing that game next Friday.
And so they've got a ways to go. But going to the NFL, first I want to talk about the Saints, and then we'll discuss something else afterwards, which I think you'll be enjoying talking about. So Spencer Rattler, of course, played this past week for the Saints against the Buccaneers. Saints lost 51-27. Because Derek Carr is currently out hurt with an oblique injury. It's going to knock him out for most of the rest of the season. The Saints won their first two games against the Panthers and the Cowboys. We all thought, okay, the Saints have, the Cowboys win must have been good. That's a big win, going to Dallas and winning. Cowboys have sucked. So clearly it wasn't a good win because they've been terrible.
But you don't. The NFL's not about style points, whether you won the game.
I know. But the problem now is, this is where Saints fans thought we would be. We just didn't think we'd beat the teams we would. We thought we wouldn't beat the Cowboys, but we would beat either the Falcons or the Buccaneers. Sure. We thought that would be the flip. Hope hurts sometimes. And this is where hope hurts, because We had hope being 2-0, and now we're 2-4. And out of the Saints roster, 32% of players have been listed this week on the injury report, and most likely are going to be out for the game. 32% of an NFL team is going to be injured. Like, the Saints offense going into week 1 was at wide receiver, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, running back, Alvin Kamara, and Adam Prentice at fullback, tight ends of Foster Moreau and Taysom Hill, an offensive line of Talisi Fuaga, Lucas Patrick, Eric McCoy, Cesar Ruiz, and Trevor Penning. Only Fuaga, Penning, Foster Moreau, and Adam Prentice are healthy. The entire rest of the team is hurt. The only one who's possibly playing this week is Alvin Kamara. The entire rest of the team is hurt. Like,
but that, look, it's the nature of the league. That's why when they talk about going to 18 games, this has to be brought up.
Yeah.
That's why I think one of the concessions, in my opinion, would be if they go to 18 games. I know this deviates from your Saints therapy here, but I think you need to have 2 bye weeks.
Absolutely have to.
All right, and I think that would be the concession I would offer. The plus there has to be more money in the pool. I mean, one extra game, you have to have more money in the pool in terms of the salary cap to dole out. And but that's what I would do with that, because in an 18-game schedule, here we are, 6 games into the season. So that would be if it's an 18-game season, 1/3 of the season, and you have that many players out. It's just the nature of how hard hitting, the speed of the game, and how brutal it can be. And that's why you get to the month of December and you're like, okay, and he played quarterback where?
Yeah. We are at the point now, at least with the Saints team, where it is getting bad really quick because of the injuries. And also, for the first 2 weeks, covered up how a lot of Saints fans have felt about Dennis Allen, because we won, we beat the Cowboys, and that's, of course, going to cover a lot of things, because any team who beats the Cowboys, it's like you get to hold that over them for until the next time you play them, and that's really fun to do. But now we're back to reality, and there have been a lot of injuries, and now Saints fans are putting Dennis Allen on the hot seat. I know he's not the only coach on the hot seat right now. I know it's been discussed with Mike McCarthy.
But I mean,
there's been discussion with Nick Sirianni.
Okay, but why should Dennis Allen be on the hot seat when he's using a skeletal crew? I mean, he should be on the hot seat if everybody is healthy and they're 2-4.
The issue is,
when you have a list like this of guys that cannot play, what are you supposed to do? Wave a magic wand?
The issue has been the defense for the Saints. The offense has been terrorized by injury. The defense has been terrorized by making wildly bad mistakes and having wildly bad coverages against teams you shouldn't be. The Bucs team destroyed the Saints this week, and a big part of that was the Saints were not playing a scheme one would fit. And Dennis Allen keeps saying our defense is great, our defense is great. You gave up 51 points. So no, it's not great. Like, you gave up 51 points to the Bucs. You gave up 26 to the Falcons. You made terrible mistakes against the Eagles to allow them to score at all. Like, the mistakes are adding up on a defense which should be better. They're pretty healthy. The defense has got everyone pretty much there. They've got one injury, I think, in the DB room, but that's it. Everyone else is fine. And Dennis Allen is saying our defense is great. It's not. And there is a real chance right now, Steve. The Saints have a top 5 pick in the draft. There's a chance. The Saints are playing the Broncos. I don't know if that's a win because the Broncos defense is good. I don't know if that's a win. They play the Chargers in L.A. Probably a loss.
Well, if the Broncos offense goes wild on them, you do have an issue.
And Sean Payton's coming into town. He's going to want to prove a point. And because Drew Brees is getting honored, Saints fans are going to boo Sean Payton to death. Like, it is going to be bad. And if the Broncos win that game, oh boy. This is on my own. I have my own personal podcast, and this is where I predicted if the Saints go out of the Denver game, having lost the game with one or two wins, Dennis Allen's seat is going to be at 100 degrees. It is going to be steaming hot. It's going to be boiling, because that is a game you can't lose. And especially now that you're honoring Drew Brees, the pressure's ratcheted up more for any coach.
The pressure's on him whether they're honoring somebody or not.
I know. But
you need to win.
But the problem is the Sean Payton factor and the Drew Brees factor adds more eyeballs to it. You don't want to get embarrassed. But the Saints could lose to the Broncos, could lose to the Chargers.
I mean, the biggest attraction of the game, to be honest with you, for a neutral fan, is Ben the dog.
Yeah. It's very true. We love Ben. We love Ben here, okay? The Saints then get the Panthers. That probably is a win, but then again, who knows anymore? Then the Falcons, loss. Browns, I guess a win because the Browns are terrible at football. Right. But maybe if Deshaun Watson is not the quarterback, the Browns win. Rams, probably loss. Giants, I don't know. Commanders, loss. Packers, loss. Raiders, probably a win. Bucks, loss. Right. The Saints are going to get themselves a top 5 pick in the draft. They're going to draft a quarterback in the first round this year. I'm saying that now. We're drafting quarterback because I don't know what we do if not. We don't have the talent. Derek Carr's not the long-term solution. Spencer Rattler's been okay, but very clearly, if you didn't want to go with him at the start of the season, he wasn't going to be the option. Mm-hmm. And so it wouldn't surprise me if the Saints draft somebody, but someone who's going to possibly call some Saints games in the future is where I wanted to go with the rest of this time, is discussing the idea of Tom Brady in the broadcast booth. Because it was approved, has purchased a minority stake in the Las Vegas Raiders. Mm-hmm. And the rules and restrictions that are being put on him have been announced. Have you seen the rules and restrictions being put on Brady?
I would assume that he can't call any AFC West games.
So I'll find the exact list that have been placed on Tom Brady restrictions.
Remember, Fox does mostly NFC games. So.
Yeah. Brady restrictions. I'll find the exact list of them because there are a lot. So here we go. Tom Brady is not permitted to be within another team's facility. He is not permitted to witness any practice, not permitted to attend broadcast production meetings either in person or virtually, prohibited from publicly criticizing game officials and other teams, not named the Raiders, and he's subject to the gambling policy and the anti-tampering policy. All of those things are now in place for a broadcaster.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
How do I put this? You should not be allowed to broadcast games when you're in that situation. I get people want to hear Tom Brady because he's one of the greatest of all time, but you just should not be allowed to at that point because he can't do the job he should be able to do because he's now a minority owner in the team. Anything he says is now going to be subject to all of these rules. And if he says something that doesn't get fined or talked about at all by the NFL, all of a sudden everyone's going to be up in arms. This is a wild conflict of interest to have now. And I don't understand why he wants to be a part of this.
I mean, if you commit to a 10-year, was it $370 million contract?
Something crazy. Yeah.
Well, make that your profession.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Make that your life's work. Mm-hmm. What do you need to be invested in a team for?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't understand why he wants to be a part of this. To me, you have to make a choice of one or the other. You either want to be a broadcaster and be serious about it, right? You made a 10-year, $370 million commitment.
Yeah.
Or go into ownership.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why you want. I don't understand why you want to be a part of that.
I don't know either. And
look, I mean, and it's not like, I have a personal friend who for a long time, years and years and years, was a minority owner of the San Diego Padres. And he loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'd have board meetings. He'd go there. He told me a few stories, which were fun. Right. But eventually he got out of it. I think he got out of it a couple of years ago. And okay. But that's different than this situation because Rick had other interests as to what he was doing and was not directly involved with the sport.
Can I ask you, because Brady would be in the position Jack Ham is in for you in terms of your broadcast partner.
Sure.
Could Jack do his job feasibly if these restrictions are put on him? I don't think that's feasible. I don't see how you do your job to the best of your abilities if you have these restrictions on you. And Brady's being all sunshine and rainbows about it. I don't think it's possible.
Well, okay. I think it's always important Everybody knows it's Las Vegas to me. I'm talking about like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I was talking to a fellow broadcaster, and he was telling me, he says, I asked him about his coach, and he said, he says we can't go to practice. He says tough to deal with all day. I said, well, geez, James is great. I said same with Mike Rose. I get to go to practice. I said I've got all the deep background material that really helps in everything that I do in the broadcast. I have access to ask questions to anybody, anytime. If I have a question about something, I can get the right answer. Right, that makes a big difference in terms of how we present what we're doing out there, without saying, "Well, you should have seen practice the other day. This was bad. It's like, no, you can maybe do it in retrospect.
Yeah,
right. Especially when the player themselves brings it up, right? Because when I was talking about Julian Fleming yesterday, he brought it up in the post game, about the Tuesday practice. Okay, so since he brought it up, I felt okay. Since he talked about it, I can talk about it because he talked about it already. Okay, and that's how you have to go about it. But you have to, when you're doing an all-encompassing deal on a game, you need to be doing the interviews, be in the facility, be at practice, things like that, because it gives not only you the best shot of doing the game right, but it gives you the best shot of informing the audience. And by doing this, he's taking away that, especially for somebody who's a rookie in the profession that needs it more than ever now in his career. He needs all those access points more now because he's just starting his career.
Yeah.
And I think it hurts him at the end.
I look at this and I just think he can't do his job, as you said, the best of his ability and to do anything. And he's, as you then just mentioned, taking away from other people doing this position. Like someone who everyone loves, who's on the number 2 crew right now, Greg Olson.
Right.
He is a beloved figure by every football fan because listening to him, he knows his stuff and he's fun and he's energetic and he's having a great time.
He's become more beloved since he got moved to the number 2 spot.
Yes.
Okay, because when he was in the number 1 spot, he was praised, but he also had criticism too. I mean, so you get both.
He was there as the number 2.
I always thought he was great, so I'm just saying, but I'm trying to be realistic with everybody here.
But then other people
he talks too much. I've heard that, I've heard that.
But other analysts at Fox alone that are there who got pushed down in the order because of Brady, you've got Daryl Johnston, Mark Sanchez, Mark Schlereth, and Jonathan Vilma. All of them are being pushed down, and not to mention whoever else might be involved as an analyst in the future. Like we're seeing in sports all the time, there are dozens of athletes coming in as analysts who some are doing a really good job. Like Greg Olson, good job.
The best. And Jack will tell you, Jack will tell you his ability to talk to James every week because they go for the walk. His ability to talk with Terry Smith or maybe with Andy or Tom or whatever it may be is so beneficial to him. Plus being at practice is so beneficial to him when he comes in on Thursdays and Fridays.
Yeah.
And, well, Jack's the best at what he does. Dick Girardi's the best at what he does. Tom Brady is not going to get the chance to be the best he can be at this job because of doing this. He's taken away the tools of the trade that can help make him better. And
he can't, and he's like, the rules are basically making it so he literally can just go to the game and that's it. That's pretty much what he does. And also, part of a broadcast and the discussion a lot of the time ends up being what is going on with the team itself. Because as we've seen with certain teams, like if things are not going well, they should be rightfully criticized. And owners or coaches or players or whatever's going on, you can be criticized in the NFL. He is not allowed to do any of that. So he can't be critical of an official if he misses a call. Let's say he was broadcasting that Saints-Rams game when the pass interference happened that wasn't called. He can't say a word about it. And every fan is going to be freaking out saying, why isn't Brady talking about it? Because he's not allowed to because of what he's now doing. And that's problem.
Because he's now part of league management.
Yeah.
That's the reason why.
And there it is. He is no longer impartial. He is now partial. And that is a whole part of it. And the fact that that is now where we're at hurts me somewhere.
Well,
because
no,
it's
look,
annoying.
this is his decision to make. This was Fox's decision to make. It doesn't hurt me in the least.
I know. I'm just annoyed at it as a fan of the sport who loves listening to the broadcasters call these games and analyze things going on. The fact that he now can't do his job because of this, like you shouldn't even be allowed to have this happen. You shouldn't even be allowed to be in this position.
Right.
Like that, it shouldn't even be a thing that can happen. And it's happening because he's Brady, and that's why there's all these rules now in place. But like, I don't know. I'm annoyed at it because it's
well, he made his own bet on this.
Yeah.
I don't understand what the pursuit happens to be. You either want to be a part of the ownership group or you want to be a broadcaster. You have a choice here.
Yeah. And he's trying to do both.
Right? And he's trying to do both. And guess what? Because of that, he's not going to be good at either one of them.
Yeah, I agree. So that is going on right now in the landscape. Also going on around the landscape of sports is the NBA is back in a week. The NBA officially returns in 1 week's time. We get our first NBA games back. I know.
Well, I mean, let's start with this. Joel Embiid is not going to play back-to-back games this season.
Nope.
Which means that he would be slated essentially for probably 41 games.
Well, his official statement was, I'm not going to play back-to-backs unless it is like a Knicks and then Bucks, and then he'll play both. That was kind of his point. This also happens as Paul George hyperextended his knee because, of course, he'd get hurt again. Like, yep.
Look, you don't listen to me.
No, I know. I'm saying it's, at this point it's comical.
I say this stuff all the time to you.
I know.
About, look, there are too many guys in the NBA that, in my opinion, oh, he's great. And I sit there and go, he's good. I'm not saying they're bad players. I am not saying Paul George is a bad player. I'm not saying Karl Anthony Towns is a bad player. But I sit there and go, okay, I don't get it. Why he's one of the truly great players. No, in my lifetime, I've watched a lot of truly great players. You're very good.
The only players
You're very good.
I know. The only players who I'd put into that truly great category that are currently in NBA, I think LeBron still gets there because he's LeBron. Kevin Durant, because the things he does, the basketball, are just, it's not human anymore. Steph Curry, and then Jokic. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much the list. Like, the things Jokic can do with just the floor, it's fun to watch. It's really fun. It's enjoyable to watch, and he does things that are great. And there are other players that are really good too.
Doncic is terrific. Tatum's terrific. Brown's terrific.
Yeah.
Brunson's terrific.
When he has the ball, Kyrie Irving, because the way he can handle a basketball is...
He's a wild card because you don't know. He could be awesome 1 second, and then 2 minutes later, you're like, what are we doing here?
But the NBA officially returns. The first game is the ring ceremony. The Knicks at the Celtics in the TD Garden next Tuesday. So by this time next week, we'll be able to discuss night one of the NBA. The Timberwolves then go to Los Angeles to play the Lakers, which will be Julius Randle's reunion in Los Angeles, as he's going to be there with the T-Wolves. They'll be taking on the Lakers in J.J. Redick's first game as a coach.
That's a big difference.
The NBA season is back. I know. And I wanted to just ask you a general point on the NBA this season, because we've talked basketball a little bit. We've discussed all of things in terms of the players and all this stuff, and I don't want to touch on that. What I do want to touch on, though, is some of the storylines going on in the NBA. I want to get your feelings on it in the last few minutes of the show.
Well, the most important thing to you is Shams.
Well, I love Shams. And I'm excited for him to get the opportunity at ESPN now, where he can be really shown as a great broadcaster and a great person and
I'm sure he'll be great at it. I don't know him at all, and right. But
I know.
My 4 words are quite simple. I could care less.
Yes. Story number one,
and it has nothing to do. Not a knock on him.
This first thing I want to bring up is a positive story, a more fun story. He's been out of the NBA for, I believe, 2 to 3 years due to injury. Lonzo Ball. He is now going to officially return to the court and play his first minutes, finally. He has been out with some horrific injuries, some knee things, multiple surgeries. He's had dozens of them, and he's now back. And so that's a positive thing going on.
Well,
right
I'm
now.
happy for him that he's back, but the entire saga of him with his father and everything like that, where it was always a soap opera with him. And like, look, again, second overall pick in the draft, and when he was at his peak, was good, not great. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Good, not great.
I know. I agree.
Hey, I mean, he's back. Well, that's nice. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm happy for him because I want him to play the game he
Yeah.
loves. But it doesn't make any. It doesn't move the needle at all. It doesn't change anything.
Yeah. I'm happy for him personally just to get back on the
so
court.
he could play because
Yeah.
he loves playing the game. So his brother plays, and I'm sure that had to be really grinding on him.
Yeah.
That he can't play and his brother's playing. And his brother's played at a high level for Charlotte. He's been terrific, but at the same time, it doesn't move the needle.
No, it doesn't.
And that's just a fact.
So that's something to note. The other thing to note that I want to bring up going into this NBA season, which I think is interesting to discuss for a lot of reasons. Wick Grusbeck, owner of the Celtics, of course, has said they're going to sell the team.
Right.
That is interesting for the major reason of what do you think the Celtics would go for, hypothetically? Give me what number do you think they'll sell for? Because they're going to go for probably the highest record sale ever, team-wise.
I would say.
I'd assume.
NBA team-wise.
Yeah.
I would say the Celtics would be. I mean, I know the Suns went for $4.1 billion, so it'd be between $4 and $5 billion.
Okay. Let's say it gets the high end, gets that $5 billion number.
Right.
I would presume the NBA then starts really thinking heavily about expansion in the next few years because then they have a number, and that number is going to be really high for expansion all of a sudden.
I pointed this out during the pandemic.
I know.
Okay? They have baffled me with what you're doing. Okay? Yeah, the TV contract's coming up. Now they've got it officially done. But they should have expanded 2 years ago. Why? Number one, because you can get expansion fees of between $2 and $3 billion now. Okay?
Yeah.
So now you're talking $4 to $6 billion with two teams that would be distributed with everybody needed quick cash after the pandemic. People needed quick cash. Number two, you're now giving two more TV markets to then use and negotiate your TV contract.
Yeah.
Now their TV contract, to their credit, ended up awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Because they said they wanted to get 3 times what they had before. And I said, well, let's be realistic. That's a negotiating salvo. They'll get maybe 2 to 2.5. Nope, I was wrong. They got 3.
Yeah.
Right? And that rarely happens. So they got what they needed out of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, they can get an expansion team in Las Vegas. They can get an expansion team in Seattle. And then go from there. I mean, there'll be a lot of flirtation with Mexico City. There'll be a flirtation without question. But I think they'll go with those two because I think those are the two that you need to go with, and they're the two stable markets. One that really was ripped off by losing a team to Oklahoma City. And then, of course, Las Vegas is because they're Las Vegas.
Those two seem like the easiest, it's a no-brainer to pick those two markets because Seattle's been asking for it forever. They're a basketball hub, and then Las Vegas is the place everyone's going to. It makes sense to go to Vegas, and hypothetically, LeBron James retires, and then all of a sudden, bam, LeBron is a part owner of Vegas, and then you'd most likely have to move one team from the West to the East.
Right. Again, that is if John Henry gets the Las Vegas team because he's part of the Fenway Sports Group.
But hypothetically, let's say that happens, then you move one team from the West to the East. You can move anyone from Memphis to New Orleans, or even a Minnesota could shift over. And I think that would be more than fair because Minnesota, you've got teams nearby in Chicago, Milwaukee, Indiana. New Orleans is somewhat near the Florida teams, and Atlanta. You've then got Memphis, who's just kind of there in Memphis, just hanging out in Tennessee.
Right.
So those teams are there. The next person I want to bring up, who I think is probably someone who's got to be discussed in this conversation is what happened in college basketball this season, because everyone is apparently tanking for Cooper Flagg. And college basketball, we now have the first Ken Pom rankings. We have the first preseason polls.
Penn State is 61.
Penn State 61. Syracuse is 57, I believe. So Penn State currently is slated pretty much tournament-ish right now as things stand. And it's going to be a very interesting season for a lot of reasons. But as you go into this college basketball season now, who are you intrigued to watch as the season goes on, whether they are in the Big Ten or elsewhere around the nation? Because I know you get to watch a lot of games because they're always on all throughout the day, all throughout the nights.
Sure.
So who are you excited or intrigued to watch this season? I know the AP poll has Kansas at number 1 right now, Bama 2, UConn 3.
Kansas was 1 last year, too.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know how the season's going to turn out.
I know.
Part of the issue with what you're doing is with all the transfers, you don't know how everybody fits.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that is what makes it so different. Now, let's give Cooper Flagg credit. He played really well against the U.S. national team, the Olympic team, the pros, and kind of opened up a lot of eyes. Like, okay, you're going up against the best of the best, and you played that way? Okay. They also have a lot of youth in that team.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to be one of the older teams, Duke.
They have Kaman Maluach, who played for the South Sudan in the World Cup, and people are in the Olympics, and everyone said he looked incredible. He was a big man, a center for them. So he's also on this team. He's also a projected lottery pick next year in the NBA draft. So he's a guy to watch again for Duke. And they're sitting at 7th best. And you mentioned teams with new players, by the way. Rutgers is 25th in the nation. They're ranked top 25.
The two freshmen are certainly intriguing. Again, I expect them to play well, but at the same time,
it's a lot.
You still don't know over a long season. So that's going to be interesting to see how it ends up playing out. You look at Purdue, thought highly of because of the backcourt. Okay? Smith and Lawyer. Lawyer can't defend you, by the way.
As we've discussed.
No, just so you know, he cannot defend you.
And they're currently sitting ranked 14th.
But Smith is terrific. Okay? You're not sure what Michigan State really has this year. They didn't go out. They didn't hit the transfer portal this year. Did not hit it, which I thought was important. And they've recruited well, but what does that mean moving forward for them? UConn, Hurley's done such a great job with that program. But there's so many moving parts now in basketball that you don't know. UCLA, okay, let's talk about them since I was just in Los Angeles. They referred to their transfers, 6 of them, as the Quick Fix 6.
It's not a promising name.
No, but I'm saying, though,
I know.
But that is the attitude people are taking now in basketball. How good's Washington? I don't know. They've got all sorts of transfers on the team. Look, I've already done the research on all the Big Ten teams, right? But I do want to bring up one last thing that was sad, but so well done, and that was the opening of the Columbus Blue Jackets home opener last night with the Florida Panthers at Nationwide Arena in Columbus. Johnny Gaudreau, of course, in that tragedy, he and his brother were riding their bikes and were hit from behind by a driver who was passing on the right and killed right before their sister's wedding. Johnny Gaudreau wore number 13. Johnny Hockey did. And so what they did last night is Florida, the defending Stanley Cup champion, playing Columbus. the Blue Jackets came out and did not have a left winger. So they had the 3 hang back by the blue line, 2 up front. No left winger. They dropped the puck and let it sit there for 13 seconds. And it was really so well done. Simple. You can't bring anybody back. But I thought the tribute matched the emotion of it.
I believe every player also for the teams came in with a purple Gatorade and some other candy. I forget what exactly it was. If it was either Skittles or Snickers, one of the two.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because apparently that's what Johnny brought to every game. So they all came in with the same thing. They all brought it in. Yeah, I did cry last night watching that.
Yeah. So it was really, really well done. So, and yeah, just want to make sure we mentioned that. I didn't want that to go by without people realizing it happened. Maybe they can look it up.
Agreed.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on Sports Talk with Steve Jones.